Happy Friday to everybody, man. Very, very happy to have Rob Shue back in the building. We talked about this being like unofficial official. So every week we play it by ear. Rob said yes, I said yay. So here we are once again, collaborating, talking what else? Niners ball. I've got to bring up name tags here because it looks really weird without them. There we go.
People got to know who we are. That's very important.
Yeah, like people got to know who Aaron and Rob are, definitely. But it was we've had a little bit of a rest period. We had the Thursday night game. I think we talked after it.
We did.
But uh, I figured I shot you a message about talking this Cardinals matchup. A lot of people who don't know the 49ers mark this up as a kind of like an automatic win. I don't see it that way. I think division games are always super nerve wracking for me because they know you so much. And like you can't really when I watch division games and then a team plays, like say a team plays the Rams right after we did, and they look way better than we did against the Rams. I just think it has to do with the fact that they're a division rival. So we're going to talk about that and more. I'm happy to be talking football with Rob. Like I said, after when last week's show, it had been about a calendar year or so. This feels right. This feels good. It's super non-pressure. We're not trying to be professional. We're just two football nerds talking Niner ball, and that's what we're going to do. So, first off, before anything, Rob, how are you?
I'm doing good. It was a hectic week at work, but now it's time to focus on football. And that it allows for that emotional freedom, right? I think that's why a lot of us love sports, is it allows us to get out of whatever it is we're doing within our own lives and focus on something that isn't within our control, and yet we can pour all of our emotion, all of our heart into. And for me, the emotional connection to the 49ers is extremely deep, and it goes back to time I spent with my dad going to games when I was a kid. And so it is like an outlet for me. And it was literally the reason I got to get off of the longest work call ever was, hey, I got to go talk Niners. Like, I'm committed to be on a live stream in 15 minutes. I got to go. And now I'm in a better space because I'm here talking to you, talking about football, which is something that I absolutely love. And I'm with you. I think, hey, every ESPN analyst I've seen has picked the Cardinals in this one. It's a lock, right? It's everyone's dialed in on the Niners. And I just think that's not the case when you're talking about division games. Not only is it the NFL where it's any given Sunday, but you're right. It's teams that know one another and, more importantly, despise one another. And so, yeah, it's every team's Super Bowl when they come to play the Niners this year. If they're not in competition to be in the dance themselves, they're bringing you their best stuff. That's amplified when you talk about a division game, right?
Yeah. And then if you looked at the Giants game last week, it was the first time you really saw Brock struggle, right? They blitzed a lot, 85% of the time, actually. So you wonder, will the Cardinals come out with a similar game plan on defense? Will they rush the passer, make the Niners make quick decisions, force, Brock to maybe throw a couple errant passes, and keep the game closer than it needs to be? So I would say only Homer fans who just are so blinded by their passion for the team. And it doesn't mean you have to be like super like blindly loyal and be super negative. It's just it's the NFL, like you said. So a big star player can get hurt all of a sudden. The game is in a really like somber mood because say like a big time player that you need for a championship run goes down, and now that affects the whole team. So anything can happen on any Sunday. I still think we're going to win the game, but I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk like a lot of the analysts are picking. Real quick, just want to say what's up to the chat. We got Raphael 562, one of the oldest subs to my channel. Thank you very much. This is one of my gaming buddies. Charles always asks me how I like the Chiefs. He knows that I hate the Chiefs. Thank you, Charles. David McNiner, one of my co-hosts from Monday, Niners Coast to Coast. What is going on, my friend? Laura Cat, always here supporting the stream. Thank you very much. Thank you for the compliment for the thumbnail. Yeah, I took like a standard photo, and then I had downloaded the character from Star Wars. It's a trap. I've always forget his name, Admiral Akbar, and it was like perfect. I'm like, I got to put this up here. So
That's classic.
yeah, it was like, oh man, I need to get I need to find a freaking Admiral Akbar one that doesn't like fade into the background, and I finally found one, so it was great. Frank Tom Ocean, thank you so much for coming through as always. Means a lot. So let's talk Cardinals. This is a game that, like I said, the analysts have picked us to win, and that we're going to
Mm-hmm.
win and supposedly, wreck shop and leave. I don't think that's the case. There was a quote from Matt Mayoka that was from Debo that said that the Cardinals should or could have been, or if things go a certain way, they could be 3-0 right now. So they're not taking them lightly. The fans shouldn't take them lightly. How are you feeling about this game? Are you confident yet weary? Is kind of like how I am right now, where it's like I'm pretty confident the Niners are going to win this game, but I don't think it's going to be like a 30-13, butt whooping. I feel like the Cardinals have a little bit more than we thought they were going to this year.
Yeah, I'm definitely in that space of confident in the 49ers ability and very wary of the fact that anything can happen in this one, and acknowledging, most importantly, that it is two teams that despise and know each other at a level that just isn't true with other matchups. So you come into this one and the Niners are going to do sort of what you would expect, the smart thing. Hey, if you've got a player that's on the fringe in this game, are you really going to put them in for the additional snaps, or are you going to try and get by with, fewer snaps for those stars and get a W regardless? And that sets up for a trap game, because the difference in my mind, and I think this holds true because you see it evidenced every year in a team going worst to first within their own division. The difference between the best team in the NFL and the worst team in the NFL is not as big as people want to make it out to be. That it's a couple of key players, it's the right system fit, it's guys being motivated. You can't discount the fact that once you look at your roster and you say, we're not quite there, or you look at your record halfway through the season and you say it's an uphill battle to even make the playoffs at this point. Guys make business decisions. They've got to look at long-term health of their career. And so, yeah, you see teams starting to begin to not tank, because thank goodness the NFL doesn't seem to suffer from that, but teams that don't care as much. And in a game where you're throwing your body on the line, literally risking your own health, if you're not into it, if you're not looking to punish the opponent and really instill your will upon them, then the game can get lopsided the other way. So again, I think the difference between the best teams and the worst teams is not, the delta there isn't as big as people want to make it out to be. So the question becomes, is the worst team motivated to play in this game? And when you're talking about a team that's going up against their touted division rival, the San Francisco 49ers, who many are picking to win the Super Bowl at the end of the year, this is your shot to make a statement. This is your chance to say, hey, we're the Arizona Cardinals, and yeah, we're going for a high draft pick this year, most likely, and we can still compete. We can still lay the wood, and we can absolutely take down a top-tier team. And for the 49ers, it's hard not to feel confident if you are a player on the team, and doing so is dangerous, right? Coming in and just that little lack of preparation, just that little lack of edge coming in, that can be the difference. And if the game starts to snowball in one direction, then everything changes, right? Once the whistle blows, once that first kickoff happens, it's a different monster altogether. You fall down early. Now you can't lean on the run game quite as much. The ball bounces a funny way, and you get a couple of turnovers. To your point, do the Cardinals blitz the hell out of the Niners? I would take the other side of that and actually say, given the rate of blitzing that occurred, I thought Brock Purdy did a phenomenal job. And I would guess that teams actually blitz less because of his ability to get the ball out on time and to the right people and not turn it over. But it will be interesting to see what their game plan is coming in. I'm more concerned about our defense against Arizona's offense and the read option and that kind of preview of what maybe we'll see against Philly later on in the season.
Yeah, and I think before last Sunday's Cowboys game, I think a lot of us, including maybe even the Niners, I don't know, maybe there's players, maybe there's fans that were looking forward to that Dallas game being kind of the battle of the unbeatens, and then Dallas goes ahead and screws everything up and loses. And now that game. In a way, maybe it works out for the 49ers because now the onus isn't on like, all right, we got to take care of these pesky Cardinals, but then we got the big bad Cowboys coming up. And now it's like, well, that's out the window. I think the Cowboys are still really talented. And it's definitely a game that I have circled as a game that makes me nervous. Because they're not slouches. They have talent all over the field. But once that loss happened last week, I was like, well, there goes that. And then, I go to work. Everybody that knows I'm a Niners fan. They're like, oh yeah, you guys are gonna smack the Cardinals this week. Yada yada yada. I'm like, I hate that energy. I told you last week in last week's stream that I'm trying to be more confident with the Niners this year and give off kind of like a positive, instead of being so Debbie Downer.
Yeah.
But it does sneak its way in there sometimes with me. Like it creeps. It's like that ivy or moss that starts to creep over the edges, and I have to like smack it back down because I always tell people don't over compliment the Niners. Don't
Yeah.
do it. It makes me scared. Like when people say, "Oh, you got this." My uncle during the Super Bowl with the Chiefs, was it the Chiefs Super Bowl? I forget what game it was. It might have been. He's like, "You guys got this,"
Mm.
and he texted it like 10 minutes before the end of the game. And then he
Oh,
texted me after the game. Oh, sorry. I guess I was a little
my
premature with that
bad.
one. Oh, that
Yeah.
hurts so bad. He was
I
like, he
feel
felt
you.
so bad.
I was
That cheat.
literally at the NFC Championship game against the Rams that year, and my buddy did that to me in the stands. He's not a Niner fan; he's another team, and I was like, "Hey, go to the game with me. I want to be there." So took him to that game, and literally he was like, "You guys got this," and I gave him that look of like, "Are you kidding? Did you just say that before the game is over?" It's to have that outlook of we've got this going into it is a dangerous mindset because to me it's a double-edged sword. On one side, if you win, you're already expecting yourself to win, and so you're not all that elated, you're not all that happy because you're like, well, of course we should have won, it's the Arizona Cardinals. And then you're devastated if you end up losing, which is not as far-fetched of an idea as some might break it out to be.
I might be glitching right now. Am I glitching?
There's a little bit of freezing to your frame, but nothing major.
Yeah.
The audio is still coming through.
Yeah, like the little icon above where the timer is. I'm like, out of all streams, you're gonna glitch on me. Hopefully it irons itself out. Sorry if I have a little bit of video delay right now, people. Yeah, this game to me, it's all games make me nervous though. I don't know about you, like even when it's a team we should beat, it's always like, I don't know, anybody can beat anybody. So like I go into every game with a little bit of anxiety. And then usually like like last week, watching the Dolphins completely just dog walked the freaking Broncos. I told my brother, I said, these are nice games, aren't they? When you don't have to worry. These are always nice. Like I love games that are over in like the second quarter. People are like, why? I'm
Absolutely.
like, because football is like super anxiety ridden for me. Like I love and hate football. I love it and I also hate it. Like I don't look forward to games because I know I get so emotionally invested, and it's super unhealthy. But it's like an addiction. It's like being in a relationship with somebody who's abusive, but yet there's something about them that you just can't resist. It's pretty much that. That's what the Niners are. It's like a unhealthy, toxic relationship, but you can't let them go, and that's kind of what football is. I think that's what sports in general is. It seems like a toxic relationship. I don't know about you.
I would say on some level there is that fear coming into games. Absolutely. I would flip it on its head. I would flip the script on that and say, like, to me that's part of what makes it so special is that you go into it and all your hopes and dreams are sort of hinging on something that's out of your control. And that's what makes it so special when it goes well. And I think it has taken me a long time in my life, but I think I have gotten to that place of acceptance when things do go poorly to just be like, okay, well, it wasn't our day there. I no longer allow a loss on Sunday to cloud my entire week. But there was a long period in my life, decade plus, wherein absolutely, like if the Niners lost, there were people in my life that for the next day or two would avoid me because they knew that that was going to bring down my entire mood. And I have now realized I just can't allow football to do that for me. I can still allow the positive. I can still allow myself to be brought up by those amazing outcomes, by those breathtaking plays that happen, by the roar of the crowd. But I tend to just take it square on the chin. Hey, if it's a loss, it's a loss. Next Sunday.
I have an insatiable, I don't know, maybe that's not the word. I have a temper. Okay. It's gotten a lot better. My brother compliments me all the time. Okay. I've always had a little bit of a short fuse in life in general, and football is no exception. Taking a remote control or something and throwing it and breaking it over a stupid football game. Like, it took me 40 something years to get over that. And I think the Super Bowl loss to the Chiefs really dulled my senses because it was such an emotionally taxing game. And like, even the weeks later, like when we would I think we were still doing streams, it was like we were still stuck on it. It was hard to get over. And I think what happened is it was the bottom. It couldn't get any worse. So like, now when I watch games, I still flip out and curse under my breath and like yell at players. But the days of like launching something across the room or just acting like an absolute ass. I know a guy that mooned the TV one time when the Bills were losing, and I'm like, okay, at least I'm not that bad. I get crazy, but that I'm like, if my brother's like, now you know what it's like. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty dumb. So I've gotten a lot better. So we've all grown. It is just a game in the end. But it's like bragging rights, man. You want your team to win the chip. I'm so obsessed with them winning the chip. It's been 30 years, bro.
Yeah.
I was
30
15
years
when they won. 15. I'm going to be 44 in like 2 months. So that's a long time.
Yes, it is.
It's a really long time.
Is.
Allegedly, Steve-O here in the chat with a $2 super. He says, Rob's shoe. Yes, indeed. Yeah, it's really him.
Yes,
it's not
indeed.
Somebody playing him. It's not a deep fake. It's really Rob.
And a common saying that Rob uses there of the yes, indeed. That one for sure comes up. Used to come up a lot in the mailbag where I would try and read through both my answers and the chat. And then when I would read through, yes, indeed became a filler word for me, no doubt.
I want to say hello to Beto, Niner Sickness Podcast. He said he was fired up during the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, but slept like a baby after we lost. I didn't. I was up. It took me a while.
Yeah, I was in Miami, sad as can be. I mean,
I remember Rob telling me, he's like, I'm trapped down here and I'm freaking just completely miserable.
Yeah, that was had all the victory cigars ready for, hey, it's Miami, got to have that stogie.
Oh, you would have been partying like it was, dude, that would have been the ultimate party.
Yeah. Instead,
I might have had to join you.
Miserable.
Like, I'm coming down there. I'm maxing out my credit card. I'm coming down. I'm out. See ya, Rochester.
Right.
That would have been great. Let's talk a little bit about what we talked about a little bit in the open about some of the things that worry me on defense. You got a mobile quarterback who can move around.
Yep.
Which is something that the Niners seem to struggle with forever, no matter who they have on defense and no matter who their defensive coordinator is. And their run game was really effective. James Conner has given us problems in the past. So this is, like I said, this is going to be a game where I think the Niners will be tested. I think, again, they're the better team, but like, what's your overall take on what the Niners got to do to kind of shut down a little bit of this? They have like a running quarterback / good running game. Like, they have their strengths are definitely the Niners' weaknesses. So like, that's why I say this game could be a lot closer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that when you look at if Arizona is successful in what they have been successful to in this point, if they continue to run the ball effectively, if they run the read option, I mean, you got Dobbs as the second leading ball carrier on the team, second most productive ball carrier. And so if they're able to do that, if James Conner is able to continue to run effectively, gets a lot of carries and extend drives, if you've got a situation where Dobbs is able to effectively run the ball as well and complete passes at a moderate rate, what you're going to see is the Cardinals balancing out that time of possession, limiting the number of touches that the 49ers get with the football. So if you can possess the ball near half the game or greater and limit the number of possessions that the opponent is going to get, all it takes to make a game go sideways is a turnover or two going the wrong direction. And obviously, that's the type of thing that can happen within an NFL game. So I believe that the Niners having the extra time in between the Thursday night game and coming up against Arizona is critical because we do need to be very conscious of the read option. This is really our first crack at it since getting our tails handed to us during the preseason. And it is great preparation for facing a more potent attack with the Philadelphia Eagles. So even if it is just that practice, it is extremely useful for this defense. But I'm going to argue that, again, going back to the idea that this is a divisional game between two teams that do not like each other in the least, and because of the fact that those strengths for the Cardinals line up with areas that the Niners have to at least prove that they're capable in, if not saying that there are weaknesses as well. This one lines up to be a closer matchup than it should be, given the discrepancy in talent between these two teams.
I want to ask you this question. I know we're jumping off what we were just talking about, but so Laura asked me if I care about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. I do not. I think it's really, really, really just. I'm so old. I'm like, good for them, whatever. I just feel like a song is coming that's gonna. He's a known cheater, and she's, she likes to make songs about all her exes, so. I just feel like she's got a pen and a pad with her, and if anything happens, she's gonna belt off another huge hit, and that's just what I think about it. I got that song stuck in my head though now. Hi, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me. It's always in my head all the time. Thank you, Taylor Swift. I do not like you, but that song is catchy.
I mean, I got no problem with T Swift. I think that she puts out some quality music. It's, pop 100 music. It's Billboard music, but I'm all about that. Like, it's good driving the car, kind of throw it on, have it in the background type of music. Do I care about the relationship between the two of them? Not so much. I mean, it's fascinating in that it is a relationship playing out in front of us in that way. But I am not a huge Kelce fan, so to speak, because of the fact that he's been a part of ripping our hearts out. It's hard to get behind that. Like, I understand he's got a magnetic personality. People love him on the podcast, and he's great on commercials. But I have a hard time not filtering that with, you took my heart out, threw it on the ground, and stomped on it in football terms, and therefore
picked it up and then dropped
really
it on the ground and re-stomped on it.
Yeah.
Again, every time we play you guys freaking boat races all the time. Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm not a fan of him per se, but he is a cool cat as far as like him and his brother are cool. But it's like back in the day with the Cowboys. You probably are the same way. Like even now when I see Michael Irvin on television, I hate him.
I've come full circle on Michael Irvin. I am a huge Michael Irvin fan now. Same with Dion, but there was a long period of time where both of those guys instilled a lot of anger.
I like Dion because he helped us win a chip, so he's forever in my heart as far as a player. I just I don't know, man, with the Cowboys, like Irvin always got to me because he's known to be a push-off artist. And like when we talk about Michael Irvin and you talk about how great he was also a guy who pushed off incessantly as a wide receiver. So I never I don't know. He always bothers me when I hear him talk and he's talking about guys. I'm just like, you pushed off, bro. You used to go up against Eric Davis and just, face palm him and turn around and catch all that, whatever, from Troy Aikman. And I don't know, the Cowboys, they were so good that, like, as a team, like talent wise.
Yeah.
That was the other thing too, is like sometimes I envied them a little bit as a 49er fan, like that big offensive line and this, that, and the other. Because the Niners were more of the, the West Coast, everybody's undersized. It was more of a finesse team. And sometimes I was like, man, I wish we could be like Dallas.
Yeah.
So there was always like this jealousy, hatred. So even now when I see certain guys, I'm like, like the commercial where Jerry Rice is dancing with Emmett Smith and they're doing I'm just like, oh God, why are you doing this to me? I don't like you two together. Why are you friends? It's just, I don't like it. But I'm not a Swiftie. I don't hate the girl. She's really tall.
Yeah.
Like I dated a girl who was about that height and I'm about 6'3". Me, that's they had kids and they got married, man. They'd have like a George Mirasan for a son. It'd be ridiculously tall, but
Future
and
athletes coming out.
future athlete, right? And maybe singer after they retire. Um, we touched on this last week, but I wanted to touch on you again with it. The Niners extended John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan in multi-year extensions. Me and you talked about last week about how there's fans out there that are just so like, anything goes wrong, you fire the coach, you fire the GM, get rid of everybody, and like they make it like it's that easy. We know what the Niners were before they got here. The Niners were a steaming pile of freaking donkey crap. Okay,
Yep.
they were bad, they were dysfunctional, they leaked, they weren't talented, all those things you can think of. No, and I know Rob can speak to this. No, we're not okay with us just winning playoff games. We want Super Bowls too. But you can't just every time something goes a little bit bad, completely get rid of everybody and start over and think that this like it's hard enough to get it to where it is right now and keep it sustainable, with contracts and players aging out and drafting and free agency and all that stuff and having to pay everybody to just get rid of a coach and a GM and thinking you're going to, recapture or get a better turnout from what you have right now, I think is ridiculous. What are you kind of in the same mindset, or do you have a little bit of a like an end limit to it with Kyle and John? Do you have a wit's end with the two of them, or are more the mindset of like they've gotten us in a really good spot and it's just a matter of time?
I mean, I think that there are a couple things that are true there. I actually disagree a little bit. While I do have my eyes on the prize that winning a Super Bowl absolutely matters, I am of the belief that it matters that you're winning every year. It matters that you're in the playoffs. It matters that you've made 3 out of 4 NFC championship games. To me, it's crazy not to count that. Crazy. The idea that someone would say, well, that's the same as going 2-15 4 years in a row. Bullshit. Sit through a season that's 2-15. Check out of a season in week 4, right? Tell me there's not a difference of being in it until the end of January where like everything is on the line. So to me, you have to look at the track record of success. And then I was trying to pull it up in the background. I doubt that I'll be able to get to it to get the actual numbers in there. But if you look at the track record of success for the 49ers in drafting players over the span of the Lynch and Shanahan era, yes, a lot of things get blown out of proportion with regard to some of the big misses that have happened. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't criticize on those misses. I think it's absolutely fair to criticize on those misses, but you have to take the entire context into mind when evaluating the totality of it. And this, I did manage to find this because David Lombardi had retweeted it yesterday. And it's from a thread by Gopher Baroque. Gopher Baroque,
it's a great
61
name
on Twitter. And it's in the 7 years that Lynch and Shanahan have been with the 49ers. A lot have been made about their failures. Of the 58 draft picks in that stretch, so 58 total picks during that 7 years, 35 of the 58 are still with the team. Of those 35, 16 are starters. So of 22 possible starters, 16 are homegrown draft picks. And you're talking about the most talented roster in the NFL.
Yep.
So that's a track record of success, if you ask me. That is like, on paper, your resume is pretty stellar. Go back to the wins and losses. Those NFC championship games, again, to me, are very critical. Having been to some of those NFC championship games, I understand the frustration of not getting that championship, but man, there are 31 losers every single year. There is only one team that gets all the glory. And to compare all of those 31 teams as being equal simply because they missed the ultimate prize is madness to me. So I give these two a lot of leeway. Now, there are ways in which either one of them could warrant being let go by the organization, but they would need to fall outside of the normal parameters of just, it's a rough season. It would need to be several rough seasons or something out of the ordinary. One of them could do anything character-wise where I would change my tune, right? If something came out about one of the two of them, I wouldn't stand behind them unequivocally just because of the track record they have. But as far as for performance, if I'm going to let either one of them go for performance, man, they've stacked a lot of wins, a lot of positive deposits. And I think they would need to make some major mistakes beyond the mistakes that they made to this point. Because to this point, the balance of negative and positive, in my mind, is wildly skewed to the positive.
Randy Daytona, I'm loving all your Star Wars references, and you're right. As a huge Star Wars fan and a big Darth Vader fan, he's my favorite character because he's mentally tortured, but he's got a good heart deep down. At the end, all of nothing fans, that's a characteristic of the dark side. Yep. Only a Sith deals in absolutes. Exactly. I love you guys. Oh my God, this is great.
Getting the Star Wars going.
Only a Sith deals in absolute. Yeah, that's right. It's all or nothing. And someone's going to watch this and be like, you guys are okay with mediocrity. No, we're not. And the Niners haven't been mediocre.
No, that's the point. Is like if someone said that to me, I would say your definition of mediocrity is wrong. And I would drop an F-bomb in there while I was saying it.
Yeah, like mediocre would be like an 8-8. Well, back in the day when that was the amount of games, a mediocre season would be like a 500 season. You get a decent draft pick every year. You're in the middle of the pack, and then you just repeat the process. You know what I mean? The Niners, you say what you want about anything that's happened over the past 6 or 7 years. They try their damnedest to put a team on the field that can compete for a championship every single year. Like you said, 31 other teams are failures too, right? So are you going to fire everybody's coaches and GMs every single year and reset it it's not real. It's not Madden. You can't do that. It's like the Niners have developed a culture in a place where people want to come play. Players still want their money and they want to get paid, but they could be like, wow, I could have gotten more money and go to, a team that never wins, like the Bears, or I could take a little less, not much, but a little less, go to San Francisco and put myself in a position every single year we're in the place to possibly get a championship. And
right.
He says, put the F-bomb in there.
Yeah, I don't know why I censored myself in that moment. I should have just let it out. It really wanted to. I wanted to emphasize
like, can I swear? And I was like, yeah, wait like 10 minutes.
Yeah, just not in the beginning.
If you're gonna say the word that rhymes with buck, give it like 10. I don't even know if that's a real rule, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, it is somewhere in weird YouTube algorithm land.
I remember Kelly and Tom Sula, the coaching we now is fantastic. We have the best linebacker coach in the NFL, Johnny Holland. The guys we got 2 more draft picks this year that we got in Jalen Graham and D Winters, who could be future stars on this team. Maybe, I don't know, but they have a lot of depth there. I just think that like I said, they put themselves in a position every year to have a team that's competitive.
Yes. And they're not afraid to take swings. I think that's what people oftentimes are misremembering in all the mistakes is like that took gumption. That took a willingness to swing big because they have big aspirations, because they are attempting to win it all. Jed has written some phenomenally large checks in paying forward bonuses that are then amortized over the next 6 years so that we have cap space to play with, right? We should not have $42 million in cap space. That is by kicking money down the road, coming up with $100 million plus to pay out on the spot to guys like Kittle, Eric Armstead, Trent Williams, all of those contracts that are getting renegotiated. That is actual money coming out of Jed York's pocket. And don't get me wrong, you criticize Jed York all you want, but he has done better and better at recusing himself from the area of operations where he's not an expert, and he is focused on the money aspect of it, and he's ponied up when he's needed to. And to me, that makes a good owner. If you're willing to write the checks and sign off on your head coach and your GM taking big swings, big cuts, then that's a quality ownership group right there.
You're putting your team in a position. How do you look at it? would you trade a Super Bowl for years of mediocrity?
I hate to say it because of what I just said about winning is important. But when you talk about if you're actually promising, if you are saying you can have this Super Bowl, but it's going to be followed by 3-4 years of trash afterward, yeah, I'm still taking it because those Lombardis are
Mm,
so hard to come by that
mm,
the sixth one has felt so elusive. I'm so
yeah.
tired of hearing the quest for six. I wish they would retire
Take
that and no fan
six.
would ever say quest for six again. It yes, I need that next championship and would give up a lot for it. But I think the Niners have taken a more reasoned approach to it because that championship is not guaranteed. There is no, hey, I'll trade you this for years of mediocrity. And therefore, they've taken big swings and are approaching it with sustainability in mind. And it's worked out. We've been good year to year, and we have core players locked down, young players with talent. It doesn't feel as if the Niners are about to drop off any cliff in the way in which the Rams did. They pushed all their chips in, kind of knowing they were doing that, and it worked out for them. I don't think they would go back and change a thing.
Um, I mean, I personally think that I could never get down with being okay with losing. I get what you're saying, and I want a championship bad, but I'm glad nothing's promised and
Yes.
that we have the sickening, repetitive, gut-wrenching thing every year that we go through where we think we have a shot and then it doesn't happen, but we're fans and we're loyal and we go through it and we torture ourselves. Like, I'd rather go through it every single year with no
That's what it means
promise.
to be faithful, right? Is that
Right.
idea of like reinvesting each year, even though we keep getting our heart torn out from our chest eventually.
I don't know, man. It's been so long. You're right. It's been really long, man. My nephew has never seen a championship in his lifetime, and he's a 49ers fan. He was born the summer of '95. Okay. So
Oof.
I was a freshman in high school. Jeez, that's a long time ago. I'll tell you what, my class of 25-year anniversary just passed. Just to let you know how long the Niners haven't won. So yeah, let's talk about. I saw the comment. I'm going to bring it up. We talked about this off stream. Let's talk about the injuries
Mm.
that kind of cropped up here. You're not super bummed about them. I'm a little bit more worried just because it seems like it's happening again, like it always does. Where is it? Let's go here. So Greenlaw is questionable. He did not practice Wednesday. Limited. Um, that's a concern for me, but questionable is better than doubtful. Juwan Jennings will not play. Deebo Samuel, that's worrisome. Elijah Mitchell, late in the week, something happened. Anybody surprised? I'm not. He's questionable. And then Demetrius Flanagan fouls. Any injuries on there that are super concerning to you, or are you optimistic, Rob, and you just think that it's we got enough bullets in the chamber to be able to offset?
I mean, the only one that's concerning to me is Elijah Mitchell, right? That one pops up out of nowhere, and you worry about a guy who has dealt with injuries in his career to this point. I am a firm believer in. I think we underestimate how violent of a game the NFL is, and
It is.
therefore how common these injuries are, and how unlucky it can be just to have one fluke injury at one point in time, and sometimes the body connectivity then causes another injury, right? So if you have a high ankle sprain and then you see someone with a tweak to their knee, like there's correlation there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, this is a nagging injury that has continued for me. And now it's led to this other fact. The same thing happened. You saw it, unfortunately, with Jason Verrett, where it went like, knee, Achilles to knee. That the way in which they're linked can make it seem like someone is injury prone, when in reality, it's just a very violent game and a small sample size. And some of these players come out of that, right? What was the line on Eric Armstead early in his career? Can never stay healthy. No, it turned out it was just a couple of years of bad luck, and it has absolutely turned around. It is no longer a trend. And so The concerning one is Elijah Mitchell. All the others appear to be trending in the right direction, right? Brandon Ayuk goes from not playing in last week's game to full participant in those practices. And those that were not participants are moving on to limited participants. So everyone that isn't Elijah Mitchell or Jawan Jennings seems to be trending in the right direction. Jawan Jennings, that's unfortunate because he does play a clutch role that I don't think gets as much credit maybe as it deserves, although we have given him the nickname
of Jawan Jennings.
Yeah, third and Jawan. So maybe he does get the credit he deserves, but it is an important piece that without him, the question mark becomes who steps up in those critical moments if they're needed, right? If this game does end up being close because the Cardinals focus on running the ball, and let's say they do it successfully and they possess the ball for more than half of the time in the game, this could be a close matchup. If we don't connect in the red zone as we struggled in weeks past, in particular last week, then you could see a situation where it's a close game. You get down to a 3rd and long and you don't have 3rd and Jawan out there. So that one slightly concerning. The Elijah Mitchell one, very concerning. What I hate most is what's happening, and you see it in the chat, and I'm not faulting anyone. It is an injury history and it's showing up, but then it starts to be perpetuated as a storyline. And it gets its own legs from that. And the negativity associated with it, the players feel that. Like, man, I think we say these things not realizing they're going to hit home, but players are tuned in with social media and they hear that.
They say they're not, but they really are.
Oh, they are.
Say they're not, but they are. People know what's going on.
Yeah, watch the ego responses from guys like, hey, I've been doubted the whole time. And then they get a chance to prove themselves and you see them talking to the doubters. Like clearly they heard the noise when they were down.
Remember McGlinchey?
Yeah, absolutely.
People were taking shots at him and then he was like, you like that or something? It was
right.
I don't know.
And so I always feel bad when it becomes a storyline like it is for Elijah Mitchell, because rightfully so, fans are frustrated because it has been a string of injuries. It has been a string of bad luck. And I just think that negativity begets negativity and nothing good comes of it. So that one is the most concerning for me. But as far as how it impacts us against Arizona, not as concerned. I think we have a deep running back room. I have faith in Jordan Mason's ability to step up and take the vast majority of those carries that otherwise would be going to Elijah Mitchell. And so to me, the injury report is, yeah, it's only week 4 and we got a lot of guys on it. But to me, this is football.
And not a lot of them are season ending, which is always good. So like in the past, when we used to get people hurt, that was it. They were gone for the year, blown Achilles, torn up knee, whatever. So my thing with Elijah Mitchell, he can't stay healthy. He was injured this first year. He was injured. I think he played 4 games last year, 5 games.
Very few.
When does the productivity get trounced by the amount of games? Like, yeah, he's really good. Yeah, Aaron, he plays really well. Yeah, he does. I totally agree. But he's never playing. And it's after a while, I mean, it's not going to happen this year, but I could see them moving on from him after this year because it's just now it becomes it's always a thing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, 5 games is not enough to justify keeping somebody on the roster if they're going to miss, 14, 15 of them. But we'll see. I mean, we have JP Mason. He had fumbles in the preseason, which concerned the hell out of me. And then we have Ty Davis Price, who can't block. So I want to see Christian McCaffrey get some limits on his carries. But, man, without Elijah Mitchell, even though he's hurt all the time, he's kind of the only guy I really have confidence in. I don't know about you.
I mean, what I would argue about Elijah Mitchell is the productivity is there when he's healthy and he's still on his rookie contract. And so the cost isn't great. And the only thing you have to consider is our running back room deep enough such that if we have a player who seems to be struggling with injury, that it's going to negatively impact us. To this point, our running back room has been deep enough that the injuries to Elijah Mitchell, I don't think are a detriment to our roster. It's not like, hey, that roster spot should have been devoted elsewhere and it would have added greater value. I still believe that we are talking about too small of a sample size when it comes to Elijah Mitchell to make definitive statements about how his health is going to be going forward. The hinge point for me becomes the end of the rookie contract. If he has not had a complete season by the end of his rookie contract, no, I don't think the Niners will re-up him. But you never know, because at that point, if he hasn't had a productive season, maybe he's cheap as hell to bring back. And you say to yourself, well, who's the fourth running back we're going to carry if it's not Elijah Mitchell? And the answer to your question needs to be someone who adds greater value, even if it is for half of the games in the season, to your point about missing time to injury.
I'm a big Elijah fan. That's the thing, and it sucks that he's always hurt. I just worry, or at least I think, like, when do the Niners see the cutoff? I mean, they did it with Mostert, right? Didn't they cut Mostert off at some certain point because he was hurt a lot? And now look at him in Miami. He's like, that's a dangerous, 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 dangerous team. You're like, hey, how about a Miami 49ers Super Bowl? I'm like, no, I don't want to play them.
I want to stay away from that, please.
Yeah, please. Oh, my brother is a big Dolphins fan. He doesn't want to play us because he says one of us is going to be disappointed. I'm like, definitely, I'm not big on that. As a brother, I want to cheer for his team if mine's not there, and vice versa. He knows how much of a 49ers psycho I am. So, vice versa. We don't want to see each other's team lose to our team. So,
yeah, right.
I want to ask you about Nick Boyce. Yeah, Nick Boyce. Nick Bosa. I feel like he's poised to pop off. I feel like the start of the season, 3 games, then the rest was like the perfect setup for him to just come into this Cardinals game, hopefully, and really kind of come back to the Nick Bosa we've been used to. Multi-sack, maybe cause a turnover type game. I'm not upset at his slow start, but I wasn't surprised, but it still sucks because I hear all the talk about TJ Watt and this guy and that guy, and I'm like, oh man, they're just how quickly they forget who the best defensive player in the NFL really is. So,
right.
What's your take on Bosa?
I mean, I'd be hesitant to, get into comparing TJ Watt and Bosa, because I think you're talking about 2 of the best players in the NFL, and comparisons can be dangerous in that way. But I agree that Bosa is primed to have that breakout. You look at the predictive stats within an edge rusher. Quarterback pressures is a much more accurate way to look at how you're disrupting a game versus sacks, because sacks are a very small sample size. It requires the meeting at the quarterback, whereas pressure is you're consistently in the backfield. You're disrupting what the offense is attempting to do. And Bosa is in that elite category with those pressures, regardless of the fact that it hasn't actually turned into what you need with the sacks. So at some point, if you have enough pressures, the sacks are going to be able to come. And I think Bosa is relentless in his pursuit of greatness. So I absolutely believe that, yes, he will have himself a successful season. Having one that, sets him up as Defensive Player of the Year candidate in back-to-back seasons, tougher to do when you take a quarter of the season and only come up with that 1 sack. And that 1 sack was almost a gimme, in that Bosa's speed absolutely helped him get to Daniel Jones, but he was unblocked. I mean, anyone who's not faked out by the little shimmy that Daniel Jones did is getting that sack, right? Name any Niner edge rusher, he's tackling Daniel Jones there. And so, yes, it hasn't been spectacular to this point, but if we take into account that, he needed to round back into football shape. And that's where I want to reiterate, like, we don't give Nick enough grief. We gave Debo a lot of grief for the fact that he held out and came into camp not looking the same. Now, Bosa came in looking good, but clearly still needed to get into football shape in order to perform. And this is another season where our target is the Super Bowl. So I'm happy with Nick Bosa. I do believe he'll have a good season. And I think we should be criticizing him for the holdout instead of making sure he got a deal done and was into camp 3 weeks before the start of the season and got this thing off with a bang. Now, it hasn't cost us any games yet, but it may have cost him the standing in Defensive Player of the Year awards.
That's an interesting take by you. I didn't think you would think that way, because you are mostly you're pretty positive in your opinions about a lot of things with 49ers. Did it bother you a little bit that holdout? Did the length of it and how it kind of almost went into the regular season?
It bothered me in the sense it bothers me less in the actual holdout, because I do think players have a limited amount of time to get money. And so when a lot of people were criticizing Debo, I was preaching, hey, like, he should be able to get his money. And so in this, I'm taking the opposite stance, because I think we all should, like, hold the same line. If it was in poor taste for Debo to have done it, then it was in poor taste for Nick to have done it as well. Now,
Agreed.
I think both of them deserve the opportunity to maximize their earnings in the NFL. And if we're talking about the ultimate goal of team first, win the Super Bowl, I think you got to criticize Nick in the same way that people criticize Debo.
Especially if it costs us in the end. Maybe he's just not the same player this year.
Right. Which is not the case yet. But if it did end up that way.
I just feel like the one thing about Bosa that is scary to me is he's really the only real true pass rusher on this team. I know this is kind of not in line with what you're talking about, but there's all this talk, and I'm going to ask this question and then kind of bring it back to Bosa and getting help for him. So there's talk that, or people have been kind of throwing around the Patrick Surtain name as far as, do the Niners make a trade for a guy like Surtain? Would you do it? What would you be willing to give up? Or do you go edge? Would you be able to be, do you give away a first round pick and go for it? Or are you saving that first round pick next year for an offensive tackle? So to bring it back, I guess, to Bosa, like, is there a player, or like, does the Patrick Surtain trade get you going, or would you be more on the mindset of, hey, let's go get a guy opposite of Bosa to help him out since he's having a hard time getting going, and maybe go get trade a bunch of picks for a guy like Brian Burns, who's essentially going to be a rental, or maybe go for a guy like Surtain? Like, what's your thought? Because when people talk about Surtain, it sounds really great and everything, but if I had to go and make a move for anybody for the Niners, as long as it doesn't cost them a first round pick, I have to go get another edge guy to help Bosa out. What's your thought on it?
I would say my thought specifically on Surtain is it seems from those well connected within Denver that even if there were a fire sale to happen, he falls into the category of untouchable players within the organization.
Absolutely.
That he's a cornerstone type of player and you don't let him go. Now, maybe that's just talk in order to drive up the price, right? That's certainly been the case in times past. You hear about a player that there's no way we're going to trade that individual, and then 2 months later, it's like, oh, they got traded. And so things can change. That's absolutely true. I think there are, 4 positions that if you get a chance to upgrade, you do it. And you do it almost regardless of the cost. Not completely regardless of the cost, but you will pay a lot to do it. And absolutely, shutdown corner is one of those. If you have one on your team, you lock them down. You don't let them go. You don't trade them, which is why I don't think Surtain would be. And yet, if you have the opportunity to acquire one, you give up a lot of assets in order to do it. Would I trade a first-round pick? Absolutely. That first-round pick is going to be at the tail end of the first round. That's a larger hit or miss kind of position to be in. You're probably not going to get a starting quality tackle at the end of the first round, right? That guy's probably going to need a season or two of seasoning to get into shape, because it just seems as if there are fewer can't miss offensive linemen coming out of college because of all the spread and various offenses being run there. They're not asked to do the same level of blocking that they are in the NFL. And so cornerback is one, edge rusher is another, tackle is a third, and quarterback is a fourth. So in any of those 4 categories, if you have a chance to seriously upgrade your talent, you take it. The ones that stand out most for me that would benefit the 49ers feel more in line with tackle and edge. Edge is one that is more exciting. I would absolutely give up picks in order to do the 1-year rental of Burns. That would unlock this defense in a way that another phenomenal corner, I don't think, would. You can avoid a corner. You can't avoid a pass rush, right? Like, you can run into the teeth of it, but if you've got a great defensive line across the front, which the Niners do, you can stop the run as well. If you can stop the run and get after the pass, your defense is going to be dominant. You don't almost need to cover at that point. But yet, in the backfield, we've got all these ball hawks able to defend the pass. So edge rusher would be a bigger priority to me. I'd give up a fair amount to get a high-quality one. I do think you have to take bigger swings when you're this close to the championship. When you're on the fringe of a team that might make it, that little extra push is worth a lot at this point. I think the Rams have proven that. You see it often in basketball and other sports. You see it for the Niners, the big swing in going to get Christian McCaffrey last year, and that one certainly paid off.
Still paying off.
Right?
This wasn't a 1-year deal. I think what the thing with Burns is what's different about a trade like that is you wouldn't be getting a damaged goods like D Ford. You're not going to get a handful of games,
right?
And then be talking about, oh, if he was just healthy, like that. That was kind of the thing. We got him that 1 year, played really well, got hurt, came back a little bit at the end in the Super Bowl, and then that was pretty much it. That was the D Ford story. And then it was, oh, he's going to play. He's not going to play. His back is bad. His back is better. He's done. And like with Brian Burns, he seems like a guy who's in the prime of his career. He was drafted in the same draft as Bosa, so he's right in the middle of his prime. Yeah, I mean, you'd probably have to give up a good amount of picks. I mean, the Niners have a lot of third rounders. You're right. The first round pick is essentially early second because of where it is. My only thought is, do the Niners keep that first rounder, trade a bunch of mid round picks, and try to move up in next year's draft to go get an offensive tackle? You know what I mean? And I'm not talking about top 10. I'm talking like 15 through 22, maybe, like in that range where you can still find a starting player. He might not be like top of the top, but he's not, maybe he had I don't know, some off the field thing, or maybe something happened and he had a bad year, but he was supposed to be, he would have went, if the year before he would have went like super early. So one of those kind of guys, someone that falls
in that neighborhood where we traded out and took Javon Kinlaw and could have had Wirfs, right? I mean, that same region in the early teens where
never get over that.
It's a tough one. Hey, though, Javon's having himself a year. And so again, if it all works out in the end, you can then point back and say, well, it was all worth it.
We'll see. Like, it's so early now. This season has just started. But we can dream big because we won a championship and everything's on the table, no matter what.
That's the beauty of being early in the season, is everyone's got a shot.
That's what me and my nephew used to talk about. Like, it's great. You go in the draft, everybody's happy, heels, and then the season starts. Yeah. That's when we were bad all the time. Now it's like the draft is almost like an irritant to me because I just want football all year round. Right. And like the draft is good, but it's so it's a crapshoot. It's all about who fits what system, who's motivated, who gets passed over and forgotten, and then comes into the league and becomes the next whatever, Brock Purdy or whatever. Like with the season, it's more like absolute. It's real. It's tangible. You can touch it. Whereas the draft is more or less just like everybody's spitballing and nobody really knows for sure until guys get on the field. So I rather have a really good team playing late into the year with a chance to win a Super Bowl than be focused on, well, it's November. Guess we got to start looking towards the draft because our season's over. Like, I don't want that. No. I hate that. The only time I was ever happy for the draft was when we drafted Bosa. That was it. That was like the best draft ever. Yeah. I remember I was texting my nephew. He's like, they better not do something stupid here and draft Quinnen Williams. Right. And they drafted Bosa. We were both very happy. So
yeah, that was a win. I agree. I mean, the NFL season is short enough when it is a full season. When the last third or half of your season doesn't even matter because your team is in the cellar, that's miserable.
From what you tell me, your nephew's, we're both super pessimistic fans. We just, my nephew is not like, he doesn't get fooled. He wants, it's hard to explain. Like when you've seen what you've seen in his end, because he's never experienced a Super Bowl, like until they win it, he's just not impressed. Like, oh, they have a 10-0 start. Yeah, that's great. Oh, they're they're the number one seed. Yeah, that's great. Like win the Super Bowl. Then that's how he is. He's just different. It's just how he just doesn't get moved like me. I fall for it every year. I take the bait.
Falling for it is good.
I know.
That's the joy.
That's why I told Rob, like, I'm trying to be more positive. I'm taking the bait now. I'm falling for the Niners. I'm letting them break my heart every year. I'm not going to be one of those people that sits there and craps on the Niners online all the time. Because it's so tiring. Nobody wants to be around you when you're always bitching and pissing and moaning about the 49ers. Like, I kind of
Right.
figured that out, you know?
Well, and I want to point out, I mean, people use this analogy when talking about relationships as well. But that heartbreak, that moment where it's like the Niners have ripped my heart out of my chest, thrown it down on the sidewalk, and used some steel-toed boots to step all over it,
Yeah.
that means that you had equal and opposite joy at one point in time. There was a moment when you were here. And you have to recognize that like life is fleeting and it's not promised to any of us. So to have any moment up here deserves to be recognized. That's special. The simple fact that you ended up down here just illustrates that you were here, that you had your hopes that high, and for good reason with this team. So I'm all about like invest yourself in it and be willing to take that heartbreak, because otherwise you're jumping on the bandwagon late. You're not acknowledging how special like a 10-0 start. It's crazy to me to be at 10-0 and be like, yeah, they'll probably drop the ball at some point. Live in that 10-0, man.
Right.
That should be
I
10
know.
weeks of pure joy.
That I think me and him have separated a little bit as fans, because I'm starting to be like, I can't do this to myself. It's torture to be negative all the time. I don't have any gray hair yet, but I feel like it's going to come all at once.
Yeah.
Pause. Rob Shue, you have a great podcast radio voice. Rob has one of the best voices ever.
Thank you,
very
Laura.
engaging and calming at the same time. Yep, I agree. And 49er Minded said the same thing. Yeah, Rob's top voice of 49ers content creators, in my opinion. Yeah, I've always said to people, you know, when we were streaming together and then when we didn't stream together last year, I was like, dude has best voice on YouTube, top notch. You could probably do ASMR, like, you know, just get really sensitive speakers, because you have almost like a buzzed ear voice. It's almost like it's hard to explain. I was listening to was it Shapiro, whatever that guy's name is, that he's super conservative
Sure.
commentator, and he was talking about how some people make their voice sound really deep, content creators and stuff. You have that naturally, so you're not trying to get that response from people. It just, that's your voice. So
Well, I
I was
appreciate
told,
that fact.
dude, it's like you have a voice for radio, or like
And a
super
face for radio.
inspirational,
I mean,
like
I've got both.
happy talk. Like you could do like you're gonna have a great day today. You got this.
Yes. Listening to the smooth sounds of Motown.
Oh, you would be the perfect guy for like the transition into like evening radio. This is Rob Shue, and it's time for, you know, whatever, an R&B channel, you know. That'd be
Absolutely.
perfect. Yeah. Quickly as we wrap it up, I look for Purdy to have a bounce back game as far as how he played last week. You said that, you know, blitzing a ton would actually be maybe bad for Cardinals, because now they'd be used to it, and the Niners will maybe have something to counter that. I just think he's going to look better. I think people forget he's only a second-year quarterback too. Like
Right.
I predicted, even though I predicted he was going to have a good year, that he might take a step or two back this year, just in certain games, maybe throw some picks, look a little
Sure.
bad, give all the people that have a ton of negative energy towards him all the ammunition. See, I told you, he's shit. He's not good. La da la da da. He's garbage. Like it's going to happen. And so
It
I
is.
feel like if that's the bottom, and we saw it last week, that's a pretty good bottom to drop to if that's as bad as it's going to get. Do you feel like he has the ability to kind of come out of it maybe this week?
I mean, I differ in opinion in thinking that it wasn't a poor performance. And so, yes, I believe that he absolutely has the ability to continue to respond this week. I think statistically, when you look at it without taking into account the blitz rate, you could say to yourself, well, it's not a spectacular game. Look at the throws that he missed. And when you take into account the blitz rate, when you take into account that he's a second-year quarterback, to me, it almost makes the performance that we saw on tape that much more impressive, right? I mean, the dude was pretty phenomenal in the face of a blitz scheme that was off the charts. I mean, Wink came at him with that defense, and he was able to deliver. So, yes, what I agree with, though, is that like those bad games are coming. Everybody has bad games. The greatest of the great, you know, go back and look at all of Joe Montana's tape, and you will find some games that were not pretty. And yet it's over the course of the career where you get to see that greatness. And even more so with Brock, because it's been a small sample size and he's done so well. I think there will be a lot of haters that come in when he has that eventual bad game. It just depends on, is the defense there to support him when he has that bad game? Like, what are the other factors that come into play? I would expect there to be a multi-interception game in his future. It would be absurd if he didn't have one, right? To me, that doesn't erase what we've seen to this point. And I believe the way in which he's come out after the surgery has proven that he's the real deal to this point. It doesn't guarantee anything into the future. At any point, there could be that one play that changes the rest of his career, like has happened for, an unfortunately long list of NFL players. But when I look at the totality of his career to this point, what he's done, it's just special. And I think it's reasonable to assume it will continue to be positive.
I was told something very different in 8th grade by a girl who said that I needed to shut the blank up because my voice was super annoying. So I appreciate Laura for the compliment. Yeah. Some girl, I was like 8th grade. She's like, "Can you do me a favor and shut the up?" I was like, "Why?" She's like, "Your voice is so annoying." Because, I have like the nasally, Ray Romano, Kermit, the Frog. And my voice when I was younger was even more nasally. So it was like, ooh. I heard a recording of myself when I was like 13 and I was just like, oh God, please make it stop. So yeah, I appreciate the compliment. Any feeling on Brandon Ayuk? Maybe having a little bit of a bounce back game after being out, kind of showing the world who the hell he freaking is? Because I think Brandon Ayuk has a chance to really make himself a top name in this league. I hope the Niners can do whatever they can to keep him because I think letting him go would be a travesty. So how are you feeling about a performance? Maybe not bounce back, but more or less like he's back, like, and show, because last week we struggled. We weren't getting a lot of separation at all. And I feel like if he would have been playing, we might have seen a little bit more of a wide open game as far as like he just has the ability to get open even with press coverage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would argue, top receiving threat on the team, best route runner on the team. Tough to say if I've got a 50-50 ball between he or Jawan Jennings, who I'm trusting more to come down with it. Probably depends upon the defender that they're going up against. But it's a huge boon for the 49ers offense and to the idea of individual performance. I think every time you see Brandon Ayuk on the field this season, you're going to see his best. And rightfully so. The man is about to earn himself generational money, right? The type that changes the trajectory for not just you, but your family to come after you. And that is the type of motivation that typically drives phenomenal contract year performances. Brandon Ayuk is already a driven individual. Add that into the mix, and I do think you should expect big things in the totality of the season. And for that to happen, he's got to produce on a weekly basis. So I'm sure he was trying to get himself out on the field for Thursday night, probably trying to convince everyone that, hey, I can fight through that pain. I've got a high pain tolerance. I'm glad that they held him back. I do hope that he has some stellar games so that he puts up a season number that makes it hard for us to sign him to that contract. I hope we pony up that money anyway, because I agree with you. I think he's a critical part of this offense.
I saw a picture of him with just a undershirt on, cut off sleeves. He is humongous. Guy's ripped. So he definitely put in the work. I think he deserves to have a great season, and he deserves to get paid when the time is right. But everybody, I'm going to let's do a little score prediction, and then we'll go real quick. Cardinals, 49ers, I think it's like a 4:00 game. What's your score prediction if you're going to give one right now?
This is a tough one for me. I think that the 49ers are the far better team. And we listed all the factors that you can't overlook this, that you can't just simply look past the Cardinals as an absolute W. That said, I'm going to go with my gut on this that, hey, I was just talking to a friend / boss who is a big Cardinals fan. He didn't even try to say we're going to win this one. He was like, we both know who's winning this weekend, so have yourself a good game. And I think that's the way in which it should unfold. I bet it is tight to begin with. I think much like we do to a lot of teams, we end up knocking them out by the end, that it is a war of attrition, and slowly but surely we do get ahead. And I think that we win by more than a score. So I'm going to go ahead and on this one, say the Niners take it 27-17.
It's exactly the same score I was going to go with, 27-17. So
that's what it will be then.
That's what it's going to happen. It has to happen. We're both in agreement. So I appreciate you coming through, man. I know for me and you, sometimes it's tough to get on and to do this. You know, everybody's got their demons, and it's hard to just like get on camera and talk. Sometimes you'd rather just like chill out and not go on camera.
That's a fact.
I was feeling that way tonight, and then once I saw you retweet the stream, I was like, all right, we're on. So I changed the mindset, and I'm glad I did. So
good.
Everybody, thanks for coming through. Rob Shue, he doesn't stream a ton, but when he does, it's great to watch. If you like what you saw here, it's more of the same. He does call-in shows. Those are always very engaging and fun. I think you're pretty fair with your call-in guests. You allow people to really say what you want, and you're not a tacky type of person. You don't go after people. So I've always appreciated that. There's some people they like to, minimize or kind of make fun of the people that call them their show. So
right.
I appreciate you coming through. I'll let you guys know if I'm doing something tomorrow with Wayne Breezy. If not, I will see you Monday, and we'll try to do this again next week. No promises. It's like an unofficial, official partnership. So no pressure. Everybody have a great rest of your night, and go Niners. And hopefully when I see you guys on the Monday stream, we'll be talking about 4-0 and going towards the Dallas Cowboys. So take care, everybody.
Cheers. Faithful.
Boom.